Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm just going to offer you my closing thoughts before we move on of Aliens, Another Glorious Day in the Core. Um, Overall, I love the game. One play since making this series has not changed my mind in the slightest. I loved this game before and I still love it now. For those of you who are wondering, I did actually manage to win the scenario I was playing. And what is a bit more surprising is a little over half my squad survived. Now, I realised shortly after I'd finished making that video about the sample of turn is if you remember from my first video, I'd explained the difference between the player character mechanism and the grunt mechanism. And a question which I realized I hadn't addressed was, if you're playing solo or only a few of you playing as characters and the majority of your team are grunts, what happens when you die? What happens when the worst comes to the worst and your nominated character dies? Well, the way the game deals with that is incredibly elegant. If your character dies, you can immediately choose any grunt you wish, flip them over. They keep the weapons they had when they were grunts, and any other effects that they've picked up in game become yours. So that can be good or bad. If they happen to have a card that is a bit like this, then it can be bad. But, you know, if you've managed to equip the grunt character with something like that, I mean, Vasquez really deserves a smart gun, but sometimes in this game, beggars can't be choosers, and a pulse rifle's an equally awesome option. So that is how the game deals with that. And of course, if you run out of characters, then you've lost the game. To be perfectly honest, I find that if you are down to 4 characters or less in total, it is going to be a tough game. But the game regulates itself, so the number of cards you draw is tied to the number of human players who are taking part. So let's say there were 5 players. When it comes to the motion tracker deck at the end of the game, each of you draws only 1 card. If you're in a 2-player or less game, then each of you draws 2 motion tracker cards at the end of your turn. So that the difficulty level is adjusted appropriately. So, of course, a bigger group of real players would find the alien threat builds up so much more quickly. Whereas if you're just trying to keep you're the sole human controller of your squad, then it's a bit different. Now, the reason for that is because, as you probably gathered, the grunt side of a card is decidedly inferior to a character side. Now, if you really want a bit of brain drain, there's nothing stopping you from playing a character, playing all of your cards on their character sides, but oh my goodness, that's a lot to keep track of. It's fun, it's absorbing, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it if you've had a rough day and you don't want that much to think about, because it can get a bit intense if you do that. What else to say about the game? Now, I've waxed lyrical about how awesome this game is, but I do have some minor niggles as well, and it's mainly down to things to do with the theme and how certain things have been executed. So one of my pet gripes in this game is with the smart gun rules. Sorry, not the smart gun rule, the sentry gun rules. These wonderful babies represented by that lovely countdown, and also the counters showing the remote sentry guns. They're very powerful. I would say they're indispensable allies. They keep your team alive for a few critical turns by keeping the aliens off your back. But I don't like the rule that says that any movement, so if an alien passes their field of vision, blam. But if a colonial marine passes their field of vision, blam. Now, according to this, highly handy that I keep it here on my bookshelf, the highly respected Colonial Marines Technical Manual, which was published back in the 90s. Um, Marine equipment includes IFF transmitters that alert the sentry guns to the fact that it is a Colonial Marine and you're not to put holes in it. And I kind of want to mod the game so that my Marines can wander around in front of the sentry guns and do things. Because what one thing you find is that when you place the sentry guns at the beginning of a scenario, if you're following the game's own rules, you have to think very hard about where you want to place them. Because if you sight them too close to your squad, you might be accidentally walling yourself in with your own defensive guns, and then you spend the first half of the game faffing, almost waiting for them to run out of ammunition so you can just step into the corridor and do things. Conversely, if you put them too far away, yes, they're still killing aliens, but they're not necessarily keeping them off your back. I suppose it depends on how you view it. It's either a good thing or a bad thing. I'm happy to play with the standard game rules, but it does make me twitch a bit. The other slight beef I have with the game, and it is a very slight beef, is the construction of some of the scenarios. So there are two extremes I want to touch on here. One is the armored personnel carrier escape. You can actually play the mission, the part of the story where Ripley has gone in with the APC and bashed it into the atmosphere processor, and you've embarked the survivors of the Marine squad, and now you're getting the heck out of there. It's actually quite a fun little mission where you line up 4 of the map tiles and you have the little APC cruising along them while your Marines are blazing away at pursuing aliens. That one is too easy because the APC can run aliens over. It moves faster than they do half the time. And even if they do surround it, you have so much firepower on the APC. It's like having a couple of sentry guns and a plasma weapon. If you really want to go for overkill, one of your Marines can actually stand at the open door of the APC. And I found it really fun on one mission to just put Drake there. Yeah, yes, he survived, unlike in the movie, with his smart gun. So, I was just like this hedgehog of rapid, heavy weapons fire. And the poor xenomorphs, you don't often say poor xenomorphs, or the poor xenomorphs didn't really stand much of a chance. The opposite of that is the last mission, the Sulaco loading bay. I've only played this scenario once, but I found it deeply frustrating because as written, not only do you have to contend with the Queen climbing off your Cheyenne and, ripping Bishop apart. Nice bit of chrome. There's actually a miniature of a ripped up Bishop who you play in. He's a supporting character in that scenario. Again, this lovely attention to detail. But the scenario gives the Queen reinforcements. She gets a ludicrous number of alien warriors. And to me, this stretched the limits of credibility a tiny bit. I mean, okay, she's a massive, great creature. But I can still understand the alien somehow secreting herself onto the side of the dropship and hanging on for dear life until you make it back to the Sulaco in orbit, and then sort of leaping off to rend and tear you all up. But waves of alien warriors. I mean, how powerful is this dropship? Are you really going to get all the way into space carrying literally dozens of the things without even noticing, really? But I'm afraid that is that last scenario. Each turn in which you fail to deal with the Queen, you get a horde of xenomorphs joining her. And I will play it again, but I can't quite figure out how you're supposed to get rid of her in the time. The time I played it, the only you can't kill her with conventional gunfire in story mode. You can if you're playing the bug hunt missions, you can inflict enough wounds to kill her. But in the narrative, the movie mission, you cannot kill her except by getting someone into the big power loader, picking her up and tossing her out the airlock. And it's really hard to do because the power loader does not move very fast. The Queen moves faster than the power loader does. And what are you supposed to do? It's going to take me a while to figure this out. I'm really tempted to play that scenario again without the swarms of aliens, because trust me, the Queen's a pretty formidable opponent in her own right. And if she rolls well, she can be accurate enough to kill the operator of the power loader, which means that your fellow survivors then have to go, oh no, and try and crew the thing before she chases them around the loading bay and eats them. So there's that. I mean, I can see why they did it. It makes it more challenging, but it's a bit arcadey, you know, boss battle. And to be perfectly honest, as I say, given how she's rated in this game, you will have enough trouble just fighting the Queen on her own. But those aside, it's an awesome game. I really, really, really look forward to playing the campaigns. That's the one thing I've not yet done. I haven't played the missions as a linked campaign where your casualties are permanent and reductions in your endurance deck are permanent as you go from mission to mission. That's going to be a challenge, and I look forward to trying that. This game has a ton of replayability. If you invest in it, I would suggest that this game will be on your regular gaming shelf for a long time, because it is fun. There's great team dynamics to be had when you're working together with, you know, 3 or 4 other players and you're trying to accomplish the mission. It really brings out that feeling of, gotta do this, the odds are against us. And it is tricky. It is a In a sense, the simplicity of the game's mechanics belie the awful lot of thought and planning that's gone into it. Needless to say, I love it to bits. I think it's a brilliant game. I think that it's a real triumph, and it appears that aside from confusing people slightly by producing a wave of the same models you get in the box but slightly rebranded, so you can get all the Gale Force 9 has produced the models on their own without the game, but they've been given titles like the Heroes of Hadley's Hope for the Marines and the civilians attached to them, including Newt. So people who aren't too aware of that might end up getting a ton of models they don't actually need. I can see why they did it, but it's not necessary. All you need for an awesome time is the core box and the 2 expansions. And I think Gale Force 9 has been very wise not to produce any more, because what they've already put on the market covers the story of aliens beautifully. I really feel that they've achieved something whereby when you play this game, you almost feel like you're watching the movie again, but the ending is different every single time, and that's marvelous. And you get into it. As I said in my first video, the quotes start to come out. Yesterday's coward is tomorrow's hero. You might find Gorman does incredible things, as he did in my last game. He got over his overwhelming losses, manic depression, and just went for it. Made an absolute Rambo of himself. So good man, Lieutenant. Good man. That's what you should have done rather than what you actually did in the movie. It's a really evocative game, and I would say that it's well worth the money. It's not been on the market that long. It's been a little bit over a year, maybe a year and a half. So the core game and all of its expansions are there. You can play a fantastic game with just the core, but I would suggest that if you want the experience to be really complete, then go for the expansions too. Give it a whirl. I am pretty certain that you will enjoy yourselves. And if you are even a moderate fan of Aliens, I think you will really appreciate the effort that's gone into making this such an effective homage to the franchise. It is a very worthy tribute to what is I'll admit, my favourite of all the Aliens films. And I think that Gale Force 9 have really outdone themselves in producing a quality product. But the proof is in the pudding. Go out there, try it. If you have a local gaming group, I'm sure someone has got their hands on it already. Pester them to let you have a go. It is a great evening's entertainment. So I'll leave it there. I hope this has been of use as always, and as ever, thank you very much for tuning in.